Hello and welcome to this video which is a follow-on from the other videos, and they're all concerned with section 1 of paper 1 and looking at the different question B's that could be asked. Now, in the previous video we looked at the letter to the editor and how to structure that answer and how to write that answer. And in this video we're going to take a look at the article, the school article. It came up in 2018, came up in 2017, it came up in 2016, and in a slightly different format 2019 insofar it was an article, but it wasn't a school article, it was an informative article. So either way, they're articles and they have a certain purpose, they have a certain language, they have a certain form, they have a certain register, and they have a certain context. And because they come up so often, they've come up 4 out of the last 5 years. In fact, they've come up the last 4 years in a row. It's very important that we prepare for it because it could well come up again. They like to ask for it. And indeed, if it doesn't come up in question B, it may come up in section 2 of paper 1, which is the long composition piece. So just like we looked at the letter to the editor in the previous video, we'll now look at these newspaper articles. And I suppose the first thing we'll look at is the form that they should take. What should they look like on the page when you write them? It's always nice to start with this because we need to have a kind of a mental picture in our head of what our answer should look like. And if we know that, we can then more easily set about doing it, planning it, and actually doing it. So, like all answers for question B, you should be looking at around 1.5 pages to 2 pages. That might seem excessive, but remember, you've got about 40 minutes to answer this. So, what can you get done in 40 minutes? You could easily get 1.5 pages to 2 pages done. And it's not about just getting it done and getting on to the juicy question in the essay. It's about taking your time for question B. It's worth quite a lot of marks. It's worth, in total it's worth 50 marks, which equates to, again, we talked about this for the previous question A's, it's worth 12.5% of your overall grade. Your overall grade throughout the 2 papers. Now 12.5% is a big it's a big percentage, and it's something that could make the difference between, the different grades, or even make the difference between a pass and a fail. So what should it look like? Well, hopefully this can help you a little bit to see what it looks like. So it's a newspaper article, or it's a school article, or it's a website article, or it's an informative article. Either way, it should have a heading in which you explain what it is you're writing about. It can be, you could class that as being a headline, but basically a couple of words or a sentence written slightly bigger than the rest of your actual article, that easily explains to the reader what it is you're going to be writing about. You could also put in a box. Now, you don't have to draw a picture in the box, but you could write into the box, image of, and depending on what the article is, so let's say it's an article about school libraries, you could put in image of library. And you're just showing the examiner that you know what a newspaper or a website article would look like. Most articles contain images. They're not just text. You want to engage the reader. So lots of articles would put in images to keep the reader engaged or to help their understanding of what you've written. Now, this is not an art exam, it's an English exam, so they don't expect you to actually draw an image of anything. But you could put in a little box and just write in image of library, placed here, or image of library here. Now, that's not to say that you use this box as a filler to take up loads of space on your page so that you don't have to write actually much text. No, they can see through that a mile away. Your box shouldn't be huge, it should just be a small box. Probably smaller than what I've represented here. but it's the point that you're making, that you're aware of what newspaper or school articles look like, and that's what the examiner loves to see. So you write, and it's no harm that, let's say it was an article for the school website. Well, very good articles on websites would contain links to more information that the reader can access. So why don't you put that in? If it was a website article, you could put in, at the end of one page or the end of the whole thing, you could put in, more information can be found at the following links. www. I just made those websites up. And you can make them up as well. It's not the point. They're not actually real links. They're just showing the examiner that you are aware of what a good website article would look like. Now, obviously, if it's an article for a newspaper, you could still put that in, but you wouldn't use the word links. You would use the word websites. A link means you can click on it. Obviously, you can't do that with an actual newspaper, but you could put in websites. So either way, it's nice. It's what newspaper articles are all about, and we'll look at that when we talk about the purpose of newspaper articles. What else could you put in? You could put in, obviously, more writing, more discussion of what it is you're writing about. You could have a little box, a text box, in which you put in, let's say it's an article on how to survive the Leaving Cert, and you could put in a little box on do's and don'ts, and a couple of points on do's and don'ts. And this is kind of separate to the rest of your text, but connected to it. Lots of newspaper articles do that, articles in websites. They have just little separate boxes in which a couple of key points are broken down, and it's more reader friendly. And you can do that too. And examiners love that because it shows that you're aware of what a newspaper article would look like. So let's say if it was an article for a school website or for a school journal or magazine, you could put in the school rules. Or if it was for anything, I don't know, an article on how to get through the winter months, you could put in some tips and tricks. Just a couple of things like that you could put in just to be different. And in total, you're looking at, with the boxes that I talked about, the images and the do's and don'ts, you should be aiming for, 2 pages. 2 pages should be achievable there with a newspaper article or a school journal. So that's the general form, irregardless of whether it's a newspaper or a school or an informative article. They should have some of those features in there. Now, what else can we look at? We can look at the purpose of a newspaper article. This means why. Why do you write a newspaper article? Well, it's to inform, isn't it? Any article is to inform the reader. It's not to confuse. You don't write a newspaper or a school article to confuse people. You write them to inform. So that should immediately ring some bells in your head to say, okay, if my purpose is to inform, I need to include facts. I need to give advice. I need to propose ideas. I need to put forward a student point of view or a particular point of view. That would all be very important and relevant for the school website article or the school journal article. Now, for a newspaper article, your purpose is to either to describe an event or to put forward facts or to question or investigate. It's not, newspaper articles are not to talk about what your feelings are or to give out about something like a letter to the editor would be. It's not a diary entry. It's not a letter to the editor. It's not a talk. It's about providing facts. That's the purpose. Irregardless of who the audience is, whether it be young people or old, you're there to give facts. That's the purpose. And you must remember that in your writing. That's what they're looking for. Now, what is the audience? Well, that depends on the question. So it could be the school community. Now, if that's the case, if you were asked to write an article for a school magazine, well, then the audience is primarily your peers, people your own age. If it's a newspaper article, well, then the audience are people who want facts or informed opinions based on facts. primarily adults. And they're not interested in kind of gossip or silly things. They want information. Either way, whether it be a school community or a newspaper based article, your audience want facts and not your own baseless opinions. Now, at that point, I just want to show you some of the previous questions that have come up in newspaper articles, just to demonstrate what I mean. There was one in 2018 we could take a look at. This one here, Joanne O'Riordan. Joanne O'Riordan's life has been greatly improved due to the talents of a wide range of scientists and others with training in STEM subjects. Write an article for your school's website in which you outline your own experience of any of the STEM subjects and explain why you would or would not encourage students to study these type of subjects for the Leaving Cert. Now, this is a relatively serious article. Okay, it's a serious issue. It's dealing with a serious topic. You know, people want to know what they want to do in the Leaving Cert. They want to know, should I pick physics or biology? They want an informed article. They don't want silliness. You know, and newspaper articles are not the place for silliness. How's about this next one in 2017? Nujeen Mustafa, who features in Text 2, was not able to go to school in Syria because of the difficulties posed by her physical condition. Write an article for your school website or magazine in which you suggest what your school could do to make the school building more suitable and the school community more welcoming for students with physical disabilities. Again, it's a very serious topic. You know, it's not to be trifled with. People with physical difficulties want answers. And that brings me back then to our little format thing that we were talking about. In the do's and don'ts here, you could put in little advice for schools in how best to cater for people with physical difficulties. You could talk about it in your article, but then you narrow it down in this little box here, you know. What else can we talk about with newspaper articles? The context. You need to consider, is it a serious article about a life or death issue? Or is it a lifestyle issue? You know, about a celebrity? Because that matters. Because if it is a lifestyle issue, well then it's less formal and you should have a bit of fun in your article. However, if it is a serious article about a life or death issue, well then it should be very formal. You should be serious when you're writing this. You should not put in jokes or humour. You know, it is important. The context is very important when it comes to articles. Who are you writing for and what are you writing about? It matters. This is what you're getting your grades for. Now, finally, then, when it comes to newspaper articles, the register, what language should you use? And you can really see how this is all connected when it comes to newspaper articles. Everything is connected to what are you writing about and who are you writing for. But irregardless, your writing should be to the point. You shouldn't have waffle in there. You should just stick to the point. It should be formal, relatively formal. You can slightly kind of tweak that if it's for your peers. If it's a school article, it can be a little bit less formal. But if it's a newspaper article, it definitely should be formal and informed. You should have facts and details and information and statistics. You should be mindful that you are writing for a paper or a school, so you should be respectful. You're not writing your own personal blog or diary entry in which you can say whatever the hell you want. No, no, no. You're an employee or you're a volunteer for an organisation. Let's say it's a school, or let's say it's the Irish Times. They won't hire you for very long if you just shoot from the hip. You've got to be balanced. You've got to be respectful. Now, if it's a tabloid article or a broadsheet article, that matters. Tabloid articles would be far, let's say, gossipy in nature. A lot more about celebrity culture and a little bit more likely to shoot from the hip, as I said. So you can get away with a little bit more when it's a tabloid article. And if it's a broadsheet article, it's far more serious. Now, there have been questions in the past that have given you the option to do either one, either tabloid or broadsheet. So broadsheet is a bit more formal, tabloid is less so. Although the difference between the two have become blurred in recent years. Far more papers are kind of taking a middle ground. So in general, there's plenty of questions over the past 5 years that deal with newspaper articles. Have a look at them, try one, see how you go, see if you like it. Thank you.